Welcome to The Origin of Things, or TOOT for short. A short format podcast where I give you the origins, the backstories, slightly dramatized but 100% true, of things that you know, love, and use. I reveal what I'm talking about only at the very end, keeping you, the listener, guessing. Or so I hope. In previous seasons, I've taken you through the stories that have led to some of your favorite brands and the unlikely stories and accidents that got us there. If there's a lesson from this podcast, let it be that great things can come from the most unexpected of places and sometimes even mistakes. I am your host, Deepak Gopalakrishnan, or as the world calls me, Chuck. The origins of that for another day. In this season, we're going to do something slightly different. Let's get cracking. If there's one place that symbolizes the glitz and glam of Hollywood, it's the place we're going to be talking about today. As always, we need to wind the clock back just a little bit and head over to the early 20th century. Oh, to be sure, that's the 1900s. I get it wrong too, it's okay. Margaret Jane Anderson, a wealthy widow, and her son Stanley were in the property development and management business, and they were from the American state of Iowa and moved over to California. Due to a number of dealings, they came into what would eventually become pretty prime property, though it didn't seem it at the time. Relatively far away from the nearby city of Los Angeles and not close enough to the ocean to warrant enough interests. Still, the idea was that since it was halfway between these 2 points, it might eventually garner enough interest, and they built some prime lodging. And guess what? The Andersons were right. Their constructions halfway between the city and the ocean was the ideal escape and refuge for the stars of the up-and-coming film industry, such as Fred Astaire. Soon, the Andersons' lodgings were quite sought after and became synonymous with the rise of Hollywood. The ownership of these lodgings changed hands quite a few times over the subsequent decades, but what did not change was the decadence, the luxury, and the glamour. In fact, its profile only increased. Among those who checked in during those years included the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Elizabeth Taylor, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Marilyn Monroe, John Lennon, and many, many more. Movies would frequently be shot here, and the lodgings were now a part of Hollywood life, culture, and folklore. The city grew. There was a park, upscale boutiques, even one of those old Spanish missionary churches. Apart from the stars, the rest of the patronage was as wealthy and ostentatious, showing off their jewelry and their cars. Indeed, while the area and the lodgings were admired, there's no doubt that it was also a symbol of hedonism, extramarital affairs, excesses, alcohol, drugs, sometimes just to act as an escape from all the paparazzi. Guests would often find themselves being spoken about on TV while they were in bed. Some say it was a lifestyle that could never be escaped. It was during the peak of the glamour era in the mid-70s that a group of young musicians was working on a new album. Apart from thespians, Hollywood also did attract many musical artists as well, but possibly our group couldn't afford one of the rooms here, for they were staying and practicing at a rented house in Malibu, a little further away. One of their songs, while still in the instrumental demo mode, seemed to have a bit of Mexican flavor, unlike anything they'd ever tried before. So it was given the title Mexican Reggae. The band was thinking about what lyrics could be given to Mexican Reggae, and one of the band members got an idea as he was driving from Malibu back to LA. He happened to pass the glamorous place which we've been talking about till now. He thought of all the glitz and glamour and decadence, both the good parts and the bad parts of it all, and the concept stuck in his head enough for him to write lyrics to the song. After all, Hollywood had become a sort of mythical locus to their lives at that point, even though they'd never actually gone there. So the band wanted to make something quite cinematic actually. They wanted to make the song feel like a movie where a central character was in a world populated by freaky characters, and wanted to make him feel like every time he opened a door, there's not just new people but a new version of reality. The band would later admit they had never done anything like this before, and to get a better feel for the song, they would often drive by that road again and again and again, ostensibly for research purposes, soaking in the sights, smelling the fragrance of nighttime plants. The song went on to be a major hit. Apart from the music, the lyrics and their ambiguity spoke about both the good and bad parts of the entertainment industry and also of art's uneasy alliance with commerce. What are these lyrics? Who are the people they refer to? Well, guess what? We've introduced them already in the story. We spoke about somebody who was obsessed with jewelry and cars. Can we assume these were Tiffany and Mercedes respectively? We spoke about alcohol. Perhaps they were referring to wine, but apparently they stopped having that on the menu 1969 onwards. Maybe the guests were seeing themselves on TV could be more colorfully phrased as mirrors on the ceiling. And if you want to book a stay here, just keep the check-in and check-out timings in mind. The former might be strict, but the latter, let's just say that's completely up to you. When Glenn Frey, the band member who got the idea for the story of the song, drove by this iconic establishment, he probably wouldn't have thought that he just came up with a concept that would result in one of rock's most iconic discussed songs, so symbolic of the era it was created in. But there you have it. So the next time you're driving down a dark desert highway with cool wind in your hair, breathe in the warm smell of desert nighttime plants. That's what a colitas is, by the way. That rises up through the air. For up ahead in the distance, there will be the shimmering light. Your head will grow heavy and your sight might grow dim. These days, you might need a reservation, but if you really do need to stop for the night and have a lot of money, you could still stand in the doorway and listen to the bell from the Spanish missionary church, the San Miguel Archangel. And when you see all that's happening, you can certainly say, this could be heaven or hell. These days, they won't light up a candle, but rather take you through the well-illuminated corridor where there certainly will be voices so you can hear them say, "Welcome to the Beverly Hills Hotel, such a lovely place. For this episode, it was the base." We are the inspiration for Hotel California. Thanks for listening. See you next week, right here. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us and all our shows on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, that's Chuck_Gopal on Twitter and Chuck of All Trades on Instagram. All links in the show notes of this episode. See you next week.